Hi everyone, Kim Watson here today with a new process video for Queen & Company. Today I'm going to show you how to make a page called One in a Melon using their new fruit basket kit. This kit is amazing. Not only does it come with some gorgeous fillers, toppers and dies, but it has this fantastic 6x6 paper pad. I selected this lovely pattern. Now of course, because it doesn't come in 12x12 and I wanted to do a 12x12 paper piece, I needed to come up with a sneaky plan to create a faux patterned paper background. I did this by cutting a single sheet of 6x6 paper into 0.75 inch paper strips. These I stuck onto a plain piece of cardstock, mitering the corners to make it look neater, and then in so created a faux patterned paper frame. On top of this, I grabbed a piece of white cardstock. Now you'll notice the white cardstock is a little too big for the 12x12. If I set it back slightly from the edge of the pattern paper frame, so I cut an inch off two sides, one side and then the bottom of that side, giving me the bottom of that square, giving me a slightly smaller square, which of course then fitted perfectly into the center of my pattern paper frame. You'll notice I'm using liquid adhesive and just added a little square of adhesive in the middle. What in essence what this does is it keeps the edges free, so that if I want to add foam adhesive to the outside of the frame, of the square, I can. It just gives the page more dimension. Let's get cracking on making some fruit shakers. First of all, I'm going to create a little watermelon shaker. I took some of the gorgeous cherry red diagonal stripe and the green lime paper to create my watermelon shape. These I just ran through a manual die cutting machine. Now that I have my bits, I can begin working on my little watermelon shaker. What I'm doing here is using the die as a template, and I'm cutting out backing pieces out of plain cardstock for the actual shaker pieces, because making a layout, I cannot commit from the get-go with the shakers on the actual layout, because I'm not 100% sure of the actual design. So what I like to do is make the shaker pieces movable. The beauty of this means that as I'm working my layout out, puzzling pieces together, I can then use the shakers without fear of the little bling bits falling out of the actual shaker piece. So I don't like to commit up front to the positioning of the shaker pieces before I know exactly what the design is going to look like. See, here I have all my pieces. I take my foam backing with a little frame, I attach it to my cardstock base piece. Here I'm taking some of those adorable little, first of all I'm just adhering the inside watermelon piece, which is the inside piece of the die. Now filling it with those adorable little watermelon Fimo pieces, or Fimo pieces. Not quite sure how you USA girls say it. As you can see, I'm taking a few out. I'm skimping a little because I used them up so fast and I've made so many cards that I didn't have many left. So I'm rationing how many I use on these shaker pieces. There I've stuck my acetate topping piece over the little topper filler bits so that they don't fall out. And I have my little pattern paper frame stuck on top of that, just using adhesive, liquid adhesive. I'm going to follow the same principle for the little piece of watermelon rind. Here I am sticking the foam frame onto the backing piece. A pair of sharp scissors can be used to trim away the slight excess that is popping out from the outside of that frame. I'm using little itty bitty beads here because the shaker part is so narrow. Regular beads won't fit in there, so use the itty bitty beads, which are absolutely perfect. Here I am placing the acetate topping piece on top of the adhesive foam, and then again using liquid adhesive, sticking down the patterned paper frame. There, now we have our adorable little watermelon shaker ready. We're going to move on to the strawberry filler. Again, using a piece of washi tape to hold that die piece in place so that I don't slip when using my manual machine. I have my outside and inside piece. Again, I'm using the metal die as a template to cut out a plain cardstock backing piece. Remember, when you cut these pieces out, to cut them slightly smaller than the line that you've traced around, or the drawn line, because obviously the little piece of foam, the foam frame is slightly smaller, and if you want to keep the shakers nice and neat, you're going to have to cut a little bit smaller. Now remember, the other thing with the dies, if you're using them as a backing template, is to ensure that you've actually used the die in the correct position, because if you place it upside down, for instance, it won't marry up exactly with your foam piece or your pattern paper piece. So just make 100% sure that you've got it facing the right direction before you trace it out. Here I've stuck down the relevant pieces, the backing, the inner patterned paper piece, obviously inside my little adhesive foam frame. My pretty little strawberry Fimo pieces are in. I'm securing my acetate topping sheet, and then again liquid adhesive to attach that little pattern paper frame on the outside to finish off the shaker piece. Now, the gorgeous thing about these Queen & Company dies that they've really spent a lot of attention or a lot of time working on detail, and they've included a little leaf and stalk for the strawberry, which is absolutely cute. So I cut that out of plain cardstock because I wanted to add a bit of variety in terms of the greens in this page, and I wanted something brighter and more acidic. Here what I'm doing is using the seed pearls, those little seed bling bits. They look like little lime seeds, and they really finish off my lime slice perfectly. Here what I'm doing is just getting a general feel for how the shapes are working together, and also to give me an idea of what other shaker shapes and flat die cut shapes I'm going to need in terms of color balance. I think we need an extra citrus slice. I'm going to make this one flat. So taking a piece of the pretty yellow lemon slice paper, I die cut a little citrus slice. Now what I'm wanting to do is I want to create not two-dimensional, but a little more dimensional than completely flat. So I have made myself a similar colored cardstock base, again, just like I did with the shaker pieces, using the die as a template. I'm now adhering the die cut slice piece onto the cardstock circle. You might think I'm crazy, like, oh, so much extra work for what? But you'll notice in the end how something as simple as just an extra layer of cardstock adds a tiny little piece of dimension, and it just makes the accent piece stand away from the page a little more. Again, you don't have to be too pedantic about how you stick these down. They can even curl up slightly. Again, it's all just to add dimension and texture. Using a brighter yellow ink pad, I'm adding some color dimension to this slice. I'm darkening the center and the outside peel just to make it more interesting. It adds depth to the shape. There's something so nice about getting a variety of shades in a page, and you'll notice I have limited my color palette to lime, pinks and reds and yellows. By doing this, it'll ensure that the page, even though it's full of detail, won't appear too busy once everything is layered together. More slices happening here. Another lemon slice. Again, using pattern paper. I'm doing my same little routine, using the die as a backing template, cutting it out of similar colored cardstock. Remember, again, as I mentioned, to cut it slightly smaller so the edges don't peek out of the top layer. And what I'm going to do here for something slightly different is I've taken plain white segment filler pieces. You'll see why in a moment. Let's just press those in. I couldn't remember where the pieces went. They aren't each little piece isn't exactly the same, so I wasn't exactly sure where the little pieces went. It was like being on Survivor and having to do a puzzle for a reward. Anyway, here what I've done is I wanted to get a little section in the middle of that slice slightly darkened with ink, but didn't have something small enough, so I grabbed a makeup sponge. As you can see, it worked really well to blend the ink. And again, I'm darkening the edges, creating a little more dimension. So that I didn't bore you, I actually went ahead and made a lime slice using exactly the same principles, just obviously using the lime pattern paper this time. Now, in terms of balance and shapes and getting a variety of sizes, I wanted to create a slightly smaller strawberry. So what I did is took the inside die piece from the strawberry and trimmed it down slightly with my scissors. I did the same thing for the little leaf and stalk accent piece. Here what I'm doing is on the cardstock adding some darker green to create dimension. And there we have it, a slightly smaller and darker shade strawberry. I have all my little pieces ready. We're going to get working on the layout in a moment. I thought I'd just add a little more inking to the greens. Just adds more interest. The next step is to create my little journaling block, which is it basically doubles as a title and a journaling block. Now, the great thing about this kit is that it comes with a big variety of little stamp sentiments. They're really punny and sweet, and they work so well with the shapes of the fruit. So what I decided to do is take a variety of them, stamping them in different colors, creating, as I said, not only a title, because the darker one in a melon stands out away from the blue, but also if you read it, it makes sense. So it's, aren't you just the sweetest? You're as sweet as can be. You're one in a melon, etc., etc. The nice thing about doing something like this is that it ties all the colors together that will eventually be in the page. I repeated this sentiment at the bottom. I needed another row of text, something slightly longer to balance out the cluster. What I did now is I trimmed that cardstock piece into a square. Now, I didn't have the correct die, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mock up a journal spot using a bracket punch. It is a really sneaky way to create a journal block even if you don't have the correct tools. And here what I did is just took some scissors and rounded those corners off slightly to make the shape a little more organic and better balanced. I just thought it needed a little extra off the sides here. It was looking a little too big, and then I just trimmed the corners by hand. So as you can see, even if you don't have the correct tools, you can create something like this journal block in a jiffy using a standard edge stamp and a pair of scissors. Now what I'm doing is I'm matting that journal block onto a piece of that sweet pink pin dot paper. I think the colored border will really make it stand out nicely against the white cardstock background of this page, and of course help it to blend with the shake of fruit, which I'm going to be placing with this little journal card, this little sentiment card. Again, it doesn't have to be too neat, just a sharp pair of scissors, making sure to leave an even edge all the way around, and voila, you can create yourself a cute journal block in a jiffy. Now for a little bit more sparkle and texture, I added glossy accents to the stripe of that strawberry. As you can see, it fell face down on my page. The beauty is a wet wipe can fix the mistake in a minute. I was able to get the glossy accents off and to fix my strawberry. Here we're going to place photos. I have 3 little photos which I'm placing in a row at the top of the page. Now I'm going to cluster my fruit together, and I've done it in such a way that it acts as a little shelf. What it does is it really holds the photos, and because I'm mixing the shades and the patterns, it doesn't look busy. You'll see by the way that I've added the colors, the balance causes cohesion, the color balance causes cohesion. Here I'm just messing a little with the exact placement before I adhere them down. There's something to be said about puzzling these bits until they are just right. Now you might say, why bother to shift things sort of a few millimeters up or down, but it really can make such a massive difference in terms of the page looking balanced or not. Now what I've done is I've punched a whole bunch of white flowers. I know Queen & Company has some gorgeous pre-made flowers which you can find on their website. I didn't have any on hand, so I thought I would just make some white cardstock flowers. Those shiny flowers are the iridescent flowers, which again you can find on their website. I topped them with white buttons, which again Queen & Company sell. The buttons add a little bit of texture and dimension to the flowers and make them more interesting. Here what I'm doing is I'm adding a sort of faux frame at the 2/3, about the 2/3 mark, using 2 strips of baker's twine and a punched strip together with another little strawberry and lemon slice cluster. You will notice that I have iridescent pearls and the tiny little petite posies, which I'm adding not only to the little punched flowers, but I'm dotting around the page for extra dimension. I'm using blue posies on the little blue flowers, which incidentally I added for color balance at the very end. I'm just using my awl and a foam block so that I can make holes through the paper, pre-punched holes, which will then obviously make the stitching of the buttons much easier than punching straight through plain cardstock. One can seriously do some damage to your fingers that way, I know from experience. I'm stitching those buttons straight through the iridescent flowers, and because it's white on white, they add lovely texture and interest. And last but not least, I'm adding a few foam squares underneath the white cardstock square to give the page dimension. And there you have it. My page is done. I love how it turned out. If you want to grab a kit for yourself, just like this one, go over to queenandcompany.com where you can purchase it online. Thanks again. Until next time. Bye-bye.